At the end of our first episode, I finally revealed what we're planning to grow here on our farm. Tea. And I'm sure at least a few people had the same reaction I did when I first had the idea cross my mind. Tea? In Florida?
Why?
Like, out of everything you could do with 10 acres of land, Josh, why would you choose to grow tea? And the honest answer is that I didn't wake up in the morning dreaming of becoming a tea farmer. I worked my way through a whole list of things before one random YouTube video set me in a completely different direction. Let me explain how we got here. No livestock. Where I live in North Florida, livestock is probably the most common type of farming you'll see, other than all the pine trees that fed the local mill when it closed. Drive around for a few minutes and you're going to pass cattle pastures and plenty of hay fields. So naturally, livestock was one of the first things I considered. The problem is that I've already gotten a small preview of cattle ownership without actually having to own any cattle. One of my neighbors has several cows, and they like to get out constantly. And somehow, those cows keep finding their way over to my property. I guess you can say my grass is just pretty tasty, huh? And after dealing with somebody else's escaped herd after enough times, I began to realize that maybe I didn't need to have some of my own. Then there was the money side of that problem. I don't have a large starting farm budget, and starting a cattle herd isn't cheap, especially at today's prices. You need the animals, fencing, feed, minerals, veterinary care, handling equipment, and some way to move all of that stuff around. Before we could even sell a single cow, we would have had a whole lot of money standing in a pasture, eating more money. That made cattle fairly easy to cross off my list. Then my neighbor Jason, who also raises cows nearby, although I will point out are not his cows that keep escaping, by the way, recommended sheep. He actually has a flock of sheep too, so he actually knows what he's talking about. And for a brief moment, I pictured a nice little flock of lamb chops just running around on our 10 acres. Sheep are smaller than cows. They don't require as much land, and I thought they might be a more manageable way to get into livestock compared to a 2,000-pound cow. Then, I remember the show Clarkson's Farm. If you've ever watched that show, you already know that nearly every experience they've had with sheep have turned into some kind of nightmare.
No, this way. Come on. Oi, you're going the wrong way again now.
It's like they could sense I was a new boy.
Oh, no. No, they're going back. They're just... Oh, for fucking hell.
And they were going to make the most of it.
Oh, shit. Please stop. No, 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 no. Big hell. No, 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 no. Fuck it, go live in that field. Get run over. See if I care. Fucking hate sheep. I fucking hate them.
The sheep escape, get stuck, get sick, refuse to cooperate, and generally just seem determined to make every simple job as difficult as possible. After watching that chaos unfold for several seasons, I suddenly found a new level of confidence I didn't know I had. I put my foot down and said absolutely not. We are not getting sheep on our property. I mean, we also have coyotes, alligators, and plenty of other wildlife like foxes running amok around here. On top of all of that, I own a hound with a prey drive like nobody's business. I'd be basically trying to protect the sheep from the predators outside the fence while also protecting them from the four-legged predator sleeping inside my house. It became pretty clear that livestock farming and I just wasn't a good match, at least not at this point in my life. I just needed to find my version of farming. A very good idea. Once livestock was out, I spent several days researching crops. I searched the internet. I watched videos and even asked ChatGPT just what could grow and thrive here in Zone 9A. It gave me plenty of possibilities, but I kept running into the same problem. Some crops could grow here, but our heat, humidity, or acidic soil would create issues. Other crops required a lot of yearly inputs for a fairly limited harvest. Then there was the commodity crops that might grow just fine, but I wasn't excited about producing a ton of something just to sell it for commodity prices. Just look at the price of wheat or corn for that example. Nothing really stood out to me, and I began to feel like there wasn't a type of farming that matched our land, my budget, and the kind of business I wanted to build. One day, while my neighbor Jason and I were BSing about local stuff, I started venting about my struggles to find my farming idea. That's when he casually gave me what was honestly the most brilliant idea I'd heard to date: a you-pick blueberry and blackberry farm. I mean, think about it. Fruit is always in demand, and blueberries and blackberries can grow very well in our humid climate and acidic soil. And by operating a you-pick berry farm, customers could pick their own fruit, which would reduce our picking labor and give families something fun to do at the same time. It sounded perfect, didn't it? I mean, who wouldn't want to walk through a field in the middle of Florida summer? Just you, your family, nature, and a bucket full of blueberries as you slowly sweat out every single ounce of water in your body. Okay, so maybe there was one small speed bump in that issue. I mean, we could always pick some of the fruit ourselves and offer pre-picked berries for the people who didn't want a full Florida sauna experience. That would help us reach more customers, but it would also mean more labor costs and more infrastructure. You see, the moment we began picking fruit, we'd need somewhere to sort and package it. We'd need cooling and refrigeration to preserve the freshness. If we wanted to freeze parts of the harvest, we would eventually be looking at freezers, a lot more electricity, and a larger building to house everything inside. Then there was the wildlife. Birds, deer, and plenty of other animals would be just as interested in our berries as potential customers. That means protecting our crop with bird netting and managing that netting around harvests and customer access. A you-pick berry farm could reduce a lot of harvest labor, but let's be honest here, it doesn't eliminate all the work. The plants still need pruning and feeding, pest management, and maintenance. The field has to be mowed, customers have to be managed, and whatever doesn't get picked still has to be dealt with, and quickly. Because berries don't wait patiently for you to figure things out. And that's about the time I had a small panic attack over the possibility of becoming a berry farmer. It really was a good idea. I mean, there are already successful you-pick berry farms less than 40 minutes away, proving that the berry model could work just right fine here. Jason also has a massive blackberry patch on his property. That could potentially give us free plants to experiment with. The list of benefits seemed almost too good to be true. Unfortunately, I could also see how quickly the workload and the operating costs could pile up. One bad harvest window, or a shortage of picking labor, or a refrigerator full of fruit that didn't sell fast enough could eat through all of our profits. And yes, before somebody else says it, I will. Tea requires processing equipment too. We're gonna need to build buildings, acquire machinery, and use electricity, no matter what we grow. The difference is that berries begin losing value almost as soon as you pick them. Once tea has been properly processed and dried, it becomes a shelf-stable product that can be packaged and sold throughout the year. And for this particular farm, that difference mattered. Just like livestock farming, fruit farming got a hard pass. Why tea? With livestock and fruit farming apparently not being my cup of tea, and yes, that pun was absolutely intended, I continued to search for my flavor of farming. And by this point, the YouTube algorithm had apparently figured out that I was interested in becoming a farmer. And one day, it threw a video at me completely out of left field. I almost scrolled right past it. I swear to God I did. Though something in my gut told me to scroll back up there and watch that. The video came from a wonderful little channel called The Great Mississippi Tea Company, featuring Jason McDonald and Timmy Gibson. And as I started watching their story, things got a little creepy because it felt like I was watching an alternate universe of my own life. Their tree plantation had been destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. Our property had been heavily damaged by hurricanes as well, which is part of what set us down that path. Their family land had been previously used for cattle, and they had considered continuing with livestock, but in the end decided that that wasn't what they wanted to do either. Jason and Timmy started talking about tea, real tea from the Camellia census plant and how it could grow in the hot, humid conditions like found in the South. It likes acidic soils, long growing seasons, and plenty of moisture. And suddenly, I was hearing somebody describe a crop that might actually fit our land, instead of one that we would be constantly trying to force into conditions it didn't like. Now, Florida summer heat will still need to be managed, and tea absolutely does not want its roots sitting in swampy ground. We'll need good drainage, irrigation, and more than likely, shade during the hottest parts of the year. This wasn't some magical plant that would remove every problem and fit like a magical glove. But for the first time, the problem I was facing kinda sounded manageable. I spent the next several days slowly going through Timmy and Jason's videos. I watched some of them more than once and just kept starting on the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could grow tea here too. Down the rabbit hole. Once Jason and Timmy had piqued my interest, I needed to understand what I might be getting myself into. Now, I'm the type of person that if I'm genuinely interested in something, I'll learn everything I can to fully understand just what's going on. I was born and raised in the South, so sweet tea has always been a way of life. I know how to drink tea, and I genuinely had to make a proper picture of sweet tea. However, my knowledge of the actual plant is still pretty limited. I spent several weeks going down the rabbit hole. I watched videos on how tea grows, how it's harvested, and how the leaves are processed. And one of the first things that blew my mind was learning that white, green, yellow, oolong, and black tea all come from the same basic plant. The difference is largely created when the leaves are harvested and what happens to them afterward. The leaves can be withered, rolled, heated, oxidized, or fermented and dried in different ways. One crop could give us the ability to produce multiple completely different products, all from the same plant. Then I started learning about the history of tea, including the time that the British East India Tea Company sent a Scottish botanist named Robert Fortune into China to steal tea plants and learn the closely guarded secrets of tea production. This man disguised himself as Chinese, entered areas that were forbidden for foreigners, and helped smuggle thousands of tea plants out of China. Apparently, international tea espionage was a real thing. And why would anybody go through all of that trouble just for a drink? Because tea is consumed on a massive scale, both back then and now. Can you guess what the most consumed drink in the world is? If you said tea, you'd be wrong. It's water. We all need that one to remain alive, guys. But if you guessed that tea was the second most consumed beverage, then ding ding ding, you'd be correct. After water, tea is generally recognized as the most widely consumed drink in the whole world. Billions of people drink it, and tea is tied to cultural and daily routines all across the planet. And the more I learned, the more work I realized tea would require. The plant takes years to reach meaningful production. Harvests can be labor intensive or require expensive harvesting machines like mini combines. Processing is still a skill that we have to learn. And getting consistently good tea, that'll take plenty of trial and error. Strangely enough, none of that scared me away. It not only made me want to learn more, but made me even more excited about the whole tea world. Big brain moves. As Americans, we tend to think of coffee as the king of caffeinated beverages. That's why it may come to a surprise to some of you that tea ranks ahead of coffee globally. But what should be even more surprising to you is that where America gets its tea. Most of the world's tea is grown in countries such as China, India, Kenya, and Sri Lanka. Now, the United States does have a small but growing community of tea farmers, but domestic production is still a tiny fraction compared to how much tea America will actually consume. According to the USDA, imports supply virtually all of American tea needs. That means the tea in our grocery stores is tied to international shipping, trade policies, tariffs, and what other distributions may happen between the farm where it was grown and the American customer who eventually buys it. It doesn't mean that imported tea is bad. In fact, some of the finest teas in the world come from farms that have spent generations mastering this craft. And we're going to have a tremendous amount to learn to be as skilled as those producers. But a long international supply chain can make it harder for customers to know exactly where their leaves come from, what was used on the crop, or how the workers were treated in the gathering of that crop. Things like labor problems, including child labor, have been documented in some tea producing regions. Now, that's not an accusation against every overseas farm or every imported tea company, but it's a real supply chain concern. With an American-grown tea farm, we have the opportunity to give our customers a much shorter and more transparent supply chain. We can show the people the field where their tea is grown. We can explain what was used on the plants and why, how the leaves were harvested and who processed them, and how the people involved were treated. Eventually, customers could even come here and see the farm for themselves. We'd also be growing a higher value specialty product instead of competing entirely for commodity pricing. Tea can be processed into several different products, packaged in different formats, and sold directly to customers across the country. Having limited domestic production doesn't mean we won't have competition. Every imported brand on the grocery store shelf is still competing for the same customer's cup. And growing tea in Florida isn't automatically going to make people buy our product. We still have to produce something that tastes good, tell our story, and earn people's trust, and build a brand they want to support. But when I zoomed out, I looked at everything together. I saw a crop suited much to our climate, a lightweight, shelf-stable product with a massive existing market, and very few farms producing it domestically. Most importantly, I saw something I could genuinely spend the next 30 years learning and building a brand about. Which is why I'm calling this chapter Big Brain Moves, because it sounds a whole lot better than the guy who watched some YouTube videos and changed his entire life plan. I mean, I guess we'll find out in a few years whether this was a genuine big brain business decision or just the most expensive YouTube recommendation I ever clicked on. So why did I choose tea? Livestock and berries were both viable ideas, but they weren't the right idea for me. Tea matched our land, sparked my curiosity, and gave me the chance to build something that very few American farms are currently doing. For the first time, I didn't just see something we could grow. I saw the kind of farm I wanted to create. And that's how the idea for Gulf Coast Tea was born. If you'd like to follow along and find out whether this turns into a successful Florida tea farm or one of the longest, most expensive life lessons I've ever had, subscribe and join the journey. Until then, y'all take it easy now, and I'll catch you on the next one.